So thou, O son of man, I have set thee a watchman unto the house of Israel. Therefore thou shalt hear the word of my mouth, and warn them from me.
Have no fellowship with the unfruitful works of darkness, but rather expose them.
Coming to you from an undisclosed location in Middle Tennessee and examining current events from a biblical perspective, this is Bible News Radio with your hosts, Randall and Stacy Harp.
Hi, everybody. I want to welcome you to tonight's episode of Bible News Radio. This is one of my most favorite shows ever because, well, it's my show. And you know what? Normally on Friday night, we do Free for All Friday. And you know what? We got the blessing of getting a guest tonight instead, which is, to me, more fun. It's less work, just so you know. And if you are new to the show, I want to let you know that tonight's show, you are definitely going to want to tweet out. You want to go put this over on Facebook. You know why? Because I have a rock star, activist, godly woman who I'm just going to tell you, I love her. And you know what? I'm just going to tell you, if you do not know who Janet Porter is, you're going to get to know her. And you know why? Because we are on the same side, people. And she's been all over the liberal fake media defending what is true. And tonight she's going to be on our show. Well, she is on our show. She's behind the scenes right now. And we're going to talk about, actually, guess what? The truth. And the truth is actually going to be spoken in Jesus' name without shame. And we're going to actually make a difference, right? So those of you who are in the chat room right now, I want to thank you guys already for sharing this out and let you know that this, if we could get this trending on Periscope and get it featured, can you imagine what that would do to the liberals, people? Of course, we're on Periscope, which is owned by liberals. But you never know. God works in mysterious ways, doesn't he? Right? So, okay, you guys, I want to say hi to some of our pillars of the community. I want to say hi to Mia and Scott, Dottie, Liz, Barbara Jean. Nice to see you, David. And I'm sure Melanie's going to be here any minute, as well as Jeff and Kim and some other people that are normal people. I mean that in a good way, like you're normal, like you normally come in, not like you're abnormal, just so you know. I didn't mean it in a bad way. Scott, thank you for sharing that out on Twitter. All you guys, totally appreciate it. So if you don't know the beginnings of where I came from, I'm just going to tell you really fast. I got involved in activism in the early, actually it was actually the mid-'80s, when I was just a young person. Now I'm a middle-aged woman, and you know what? I'm a fiery middle-aged woman. I know a lot more now than I did then. And back then, I was radical, and in Lord willing, I'm even more radical, but actually Janet's even more radical than me. So she founded Faith to Action. You guys got to go over there. You know, f2a.org. Go there. You know, she's written books like The Criminalization of Christianity way back in the day, before everybody else was talking about the homosexual agenda. Janet was on it. She was exposing it. But she has been most active in the pro-life movement. She's out of Ohio, and she rocks it. And recently, she was the spokeswoman for Judge Roy Moore's campaign and took it on the chops from the lying liberal media and everything. So tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to talk to her. We're going to find out what happened with Roy, and then we're going to talk about her passion right now, which is to get this heartbeat bill passed. Hopefully within a week. So without further ado, Janet, welcome to Bible News Radio.
Thanks so much, Stacy. It's an honor to be on with you.
Well, thank you for coming on. And I mean, it's been too long. The last time I talked to you was like Criminalization of Christianity. How long ago did you write that?
Wrote it in 2000, so like 17 years ago. Maybe you should, I don't know, work on keeping up with me. You know, try to touch base from time to time.
That was 17 years ago? Wow. I mean, really? Man.
No, you know what? No, I wrote it in 2005. So that's right. Something else I'm thinking of.
13 years ago.
At the turn of the century, but yeah, 2005. Yeah.
Yeah, well, hey, you know what? That was a great book. One of my all-time favorites, by the way.
Well, we updated it with a movie, right? We updated it with the movie Light Winds. Have you seen that yet?
I actually haven't, but I do remember it.
We're going to have to get you a copy of that. You can go to lightwindsthemovie.com and you can take a look at the, you can download and watch the half-hour version. I think you can see the full hour as well.
Awesome. All right, so what I want you to do is really tonight what I want you to teach our audience, you know, about everything that you do. And I'm just going to ask a couple of leading questions, and then the floor is yours.
We'll knock that out in about 2 minutes, so won't take long enough.
Well, excuse me. Well, seriously, I kind of look at this show as an opportunity to educate people who wouldn't normally hear the issues honestly from the liberal media. So I guess one of my first questions is, what do you think of the media? I mean, is it really honest?
Having just been in the lion's den, I spent a good amount of time in fake news world. When I was defending my good friend, Judge Roy Moore, an honorable man who was falsely accused. And so I went into the lion's den, and I saw the kinds of things they do. And they talk over you, they shout over you. I'll tell you one bit of news when Anderson Cooper, when their show called and said, well, we're having some technical problems, and we'd really like for you to put your video on, put it on tape instead of live. And I said, no. I said the same thing I said at the Today Show, live or nothing. Because I had been on Nightline back when I was national director of the Center for Reclaiming America, and they taped the Nightline interview, and they actually selectively edits of things I said. And I said, I'm not doing that game again. So I said, I'm going to go live. And so, all of a sudden, if it's live or nothing, they decided, we could do that. I come in, I do the show. It's supposed to be 7 minutes. They keep me on for more than twice that, and that's fine. But I come back to the hotel room in Alabama with my husband, who was down to visit, and while I was working on the campaign, and it comes up on the screen, one more spokesperson coming up, and I said, well, that must be a mistake, because I was just on. I spent 18, 16, 17 minutes on their show, and no, they actually couldn't wait to edit me while I'm on the show. Within the same show, they went back to their edit room, cut it, and made it look like I didn't really answer the questions that they asked me. So then the next night, they edited me even further. So it made it look like I didn't answer hardly anything they said, and none of my answers were included. So it's one of those things where you've got to realize when you're in the middle of it, it's the people that are just watching at home, they don't really know what's all going into it. And I'll tell you, it's fake. It's absolutely fake news, and that's why they call it that. I actually brought that up on both MSNBC and on CNN. They didn't probably care for that much, but I say, wonder why you're called fake news. This is why. You just pound home their agenda, and they don't let you even finish a sentence, and it's quite frustrating. It's a good thing I'm not bitter about it.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, one of the best pieces of advice I heard, it had to be probably 10 years ago at least, when social media became really popular and blogging became very popular, where people actually had a voice. What I read was somebody said, whenever you do anything on any media that's liberal, make sure you record it if you can. Make sure you document it in a blog if you can, so that the whole truth is there. And Janet, I was actually invited on Fox News. It was about, I don't know, 12 or 13 years ago. I can't remember. But I was invited on there to talk about Google and how they allowed pedophile blogs on their blogger platform, and they even messed that story up. I was like, what the? I was shocked. And the video is on YouTube, and it makes me laugh because I was sitting there in a room with light boxes on me and earphones. I couldn't see anything except that. And then they were asking me all these questions. I went home because I had TiVo'd it, and I watched it, and I was like, what the heck?
Really experienced. They go out and they selectively edit it, and that's just how it is. By the way, on Nightline, we did record it. Coral Ridge had it recorded. And let me give you just an example so people understand what's happening. When I was on the show, they said, we're talking about the homosexual agenda. And they said, I did a Truth and Love campaign expressing that there's hope for change for those struggling in homosexuality. It's not about hate, it's about hope. And so we went on the show, and it was actually my first interview on the homosexual issue. I'd been a pro-life activist for decades, but that was my first interview with Nightline. I do not recommend it. But what happened was they said, you're working with the guy, your campaign wants to the death penalty for homosexuals. And my response was, look, not only is that not what we believe, that's not what this campaign's about. I said, I don't even know the guy you say I'm working with. And they left the accusation in, and they took out my response. So it made it look like I was avoiding this pointed question, and that's what they do. And so, you've got to pray for the people. If you see them on the news, especially if it's live, pray for whoever is voicing our opinion, because The odds are stacked against them in so many ways. It's hard to get even a sentence of truth out. But the good news is, we have shows like yours and the alternative media that can get the truth out. And one of the truths that I can't wait to talk about is the fact that while everyone's going to be going to Washington next week to March for Life on Friday, the 19th of January, we actually have the chance to do more than march about abortion, Stacey. We actually have the opportunity to end abortion, to have a congressional vote to bring the killing to an end for every child whose heartbeat can be heard.
Amen. Amen. Okay. Those of you who are asking questions in the chat room, we'll get to the questions closer to the end of the show, if that's all right with you, because I know that you would love to answer questions, wouldn't you, Janet? Okay. So, all right. So here is the deal, right? You are actually out of Ohio right now, and you ran for a Senate seat, right? And
the state Senate because the Ohio legislature, the Ohio Senate, was blocking our pro-life heartbeat bill at the state level. So I had been recruiting candidates to run a couple different election cycles, and when nobody was going to run against the guy that was in my district, who happens to now be the Senate president, I said, all right, I'm going to put my own faith to action. And so I went down and I filed to run. And there were a couple of different polls that showed me polling even with the incumbent senator. And that's when they decided they were going to spend their wad. They spent a boatload of money. I'm told it was over $1 million, but I know what I experienced. It was kind of like a junior sample of what Roy Moore endured. They ran commercials on literally, it was every break of every single radio show, Periscope. It was on, Pandora rather. It was on every television network, every local network. You could not watch. You could not listen. You could not go anywhere without hearing me absolutely slandered. They ran commercials that told people I was the pro-abort. The whole point of me running was because they were blocking my pro-life heartbeat bill. All they wanted to do was regulate abortion, talk about it. I wanted to end it for every child whose heartbeat can be heard with the heartbeat bill. And they told everyone I was the pro-abort. I said it on Anderson Cooper. I said, it's funny. I said, except for the sexual misconduct allegations, I basically endured what Roy Moore endured. And that's why I felt so compelled to go down to Alabama to stand with this righteous man who was falsely accused on so many fronts.
Well, I want you to know that the day that you did that press conference over on Facebook Live, that you did that, I was literally driving my car. I was like, okay, I got to go see my dad because he's got dementia. I'm taking care of him, but I got to watch this. And I literally listened to it in my car on Facebook Live. And then that night, the show took it and aired it.
Thank you. I sure appreciate that.
Just so you know. Because... yeah, because, okay, first of all, let's talk about Roy a little bit. Just because, this is a guy who you've known 20 years, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so 20 years, that kind of gives you a little bit of cred. And I actually watched an interview, I can't remember where it was, but they were talking to you about it, and they were trying to trip you up about everything, and I'm like, are you serious? Just let the woman talk. And you're such a tiger, you're like, you are great. I mean, this woman is great. Hey, if you need to look at how to stand up to the media and know how to get back to the point where the fingers should go.
Watch some of those interviews. Some are more enjoyable than others, but Janet Porter Report. I built a website just for this stuff because I couldn't put it on my ministry Faith to Action. It was political. So yeah, it's janetporterreport.com if you want to see any of those things. My favorite one was my first one I did. There was 2 Against 1 on MSNBC. That was my favorite one. It's all there if you want to watch it. It's some of it's quite entertaining.
Might have to play some of it later on the show to let people see it if they don't go watch it. So, okay, so Roy, Judge Roy Moore. I had the honor of meeting him with my dad, who's a Korean War vet. And my dad was like, man, this guy's been a hero of me for years. And my dad would just, was so honored to meet him. And I was too. I was like, I can't believe I get to meet this guy who has defended the 10 Commandments and took it on the chops and all this other stuff. And honestly,
I hosted right back in 2007.
Yeah.
We brought in Judge Roy Moore, was one of our honored guests. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I actually also got to meet Phyllis Schlafly, which was also a major highlight of my life,
Mentor. That was my dear, what a godly woman. In fact, the heartbeat bill was birthed at her funeral. Believe it or not, they had asked me to be the MC of sorts at her memorial service, and at that event, was when I called on Steve King, who was her favorite member of Congress, to sponsor the heartbeat bill, and that's when he agreed to do it. And so, yeah, I think she would be very honored to know that it was at her funeral where this federal heartbeat bill was birthed.
I have a feeling she probably knows.
Yeah.
I think God will, probably tell her. But yeah, so
heaven, right? That's the banister is they're able to see our cloud of witnesses. Who knows what they see, and I think they're cheering us on for sure.
I think so. I really do. I really do think that. So, okay, so the issue, though, let's just talk about Judge Roy Moore a little bit. So the media tried to make you out to be the bad guy when you were trying to bring up the evidence, right? Like Gloria Allred, she's, the yearbook and all that stuff. And it's like what happened here on our show, I can tell you the response from our audience was, well, Stacey, you're a hypocrite because you're not standing with these women who came forward and claimed that they were abused. I was sexually abused. I talk about it all the time. I talk about, how I would go to bat and defend any woman that I actually literally believed was. I mean, because in our day and age, anybody can make an accusation. And that's what made this very hard to cover because the enemy, even people on our side, I literally got some hate mail calling me a hypocrite. They didn't believe my story. And I'm pretty sure I know who sent it and all that. But you were able to point people back to the actual evidence. I want you to talk about the polygraph, number one, and voter fraud that you actually know took place because obviously the liberal media isn't going to tell you that.
Yeah, let me first say that all of the people who made accusations of sexual misconduct, all three of them, they all had something in common. They all were in dire financial straits. And none of them had anything that was close to evidence. The only shred of evidence that didn't prove any kind of guilt, but was to make the connection, was when Gloria Allred, the abortion activist, brought in Beverly Nelson, whose own stepson said she's a liar. That's what she does. I don't believe her. I know her pretty well for 20 years. She's a liar. Anyway, so her own stepson didn't believe her, but here's what's telling. And you can watch this video at Janet Porter Report to see it. We've actually got it compiled where she said that Judge Roy Moore signed my yearbook. Look at this. She held it up and said, and he signed it, Roy Moore, DA. Love, Roy Moore, DA. Well, there was a couple problems with that. Number one, he didn't sign it, which she later admitted. Number two, he wasn't a DA at the time. And she absolutely lied. So in other words, what Gloria Allred's position was, well, my client lied. The evidence is a forgery. But other than that, we've got a really strong case. It's absurd. And any judge would instruct a jury to say, look, if you're going to be deciding innocent or guilt of a particular person in a trial, if you see that someone lies in their evidence, their testimony, then you can just assume that the rest of their evidence is the same. It's basically based on a lie, and that's what happened. So then you've got, so Beverly Nelson completely and totally discredited. Secondly, then you've got, let's look at Lee Corfman. She was the one that got the most press. She was the one who claimed she was 14 years old, and she had this, this encounter where Judge Moore apparently, was making advances. She says stop, and he stops. All right, so okay, that's what she now says. But look, I was 14. All right, at some point I told him. All right, let's just look at her story. Her own mother questions the evidence of that story. Her mother said essentially that the two major points that she said in her testimony, in her statement, was that she had a phone in her bedroom, and that's where this fateful phone call took place. Turns out she didn't have a phone in her bedroom, and no, the court didn't reach her. The mother would have pointed that out. But she also said, my life took a downward spiral after this so-called incident. But that's not what the court record said. That's not what her mother or her father said. In fact, the whole reason she was in court to begin with is that her behavior was so terrible that her mother willingly gave up custody of Lee Corfman to her father. And her father, a year later, says, well, she's doing much better, maybe with a strong disciplinarian hand, I don't know. But she then was returned custody. So her statement to the Washington Post was, after this alleged incident that took place, her life spiraled out of control with drugs and boys and suicide attempts. Well, actually, the opposite is true. Then you look at Tina Johnson. Tina Johnson was the other one who made the allegation. She said on the day when she's giving up her child for custody of her child, she wanted custody of her child, but her child didn't want to stay with her. He chose to stay with her grandmother. And so the day she loses custody of the child who doesn't want to stay with her, What did she say is so devastating in her life? What was it that scarred her for life? Was it losing her beloved little boy? No. What scarred her for life was that there was an older man who flirted with her and supposedly touched her backside. That's what scarred Tina Johnson for life. But what about Tina? Tina was also dire financial straits like Lee Corkman. She was one who was actually convicted or arrested for a felony count of fraud by deception, which is really what took place in this election, Stacey. It's fraud by deception. And by the way, when we looked at the election results, it turns out that the experts analyzed the results. Sadly, Secretary of State Merrill did not do his job. He did not investigate the allegations of fraud, the evidence, 84 pages that was submitted to him. No, he didn't do his job. In fact, I think he needs to be challenged in the primary, quite frankly, in the state of Alabama. But there were, in just one district, 20 precincts in Birmingham, Alabama, Jefferson County. There were 20 that if you just look what the mathematician says, look, every algorithm, every pattern, it follows all throughout the state, except in these select pockets in major cities, including Birmingham. And just in Birmingham, just by looking at what happened, where they literally, according to the mathematicians, they said, well, could it have happened naturally? According to a man who had 3 mathematics degrees, who had written 4 books on voter fraud, he said there is a 1 in 15 billion chance that this voting that took place in these 20 districts could have happened naturally. In other words, either if there was a 1 in 15 billion chance that Judge Roy Moore did not win the election. That's what the experts say. And I think that's really the heart of the issue we need to be looking at going forward, is making sure we tackle the heart of the beast, and that is voter fraud, where these machines in Alabama, where basically the Secretary of State Merrill said, we're just going to let you take care of it in Omaha, Nebraska, in a secret location where we aren't allowed to verify. We aren't allowed to count the votes. We aren't even allowed to see the images of the ballots. That's what took place in Alabama, and that's really what's at stake in every election moving forward. If they can get away with this, not only attacking an innocent man with no evidence whatsoever, baseless allegations, and then to move votes around electronically, however they did it, but we know it happened. According to the mathematicians, the experts who watch these things, do this for a living, it's a ballot. It takes place in an off-state site, and it's criminal what took place.
It is criminal, and it makes me mad, actually. I mean, it's kind of reminds me of the Supreme Court legalizing, homosexual marriage, overturning the will of the people in all these different states. It irritates me. So
it is worth so much.
Yeah,
because he's marriage. He stood for the 10 Commandments. And by the way, he did successfully pass a polygraph test. That number one, he did not know these women who made the allegations of sexual misconduct. I'm not talking about the people that he knew or friend of the family when they were 18 or 19. But the ones who made the actual allegations of sexual misconduct, he didn't know any of them, and nor did he engage in any sexual misconduct. But and he's right now, I think, moving forward with some defamation lawsuits, and I wish him all the best. I pray for him, and I'm praying for God to intervene and make this right. We're crying out for justice. But here's the thing that I'm really most excited about, and this is what I can't wait to talk about, and that is the fact that we have it within our grasp to bring the abortion killing to an end. I don't know about you, Stacey, but I've been involved in this issue for 40 years. I counted it up. I couldn't believe it. I got involved very, very young. But it's a situation where we have been talking about abortion. We've been marching to end abortion. We have been regulating around the edges of abortion for now 45 years. And what do we have to show for it? The success of the pro-life movement. National Right to Life will say, oh, we've done so well with our method of fighting abortion that we only kill nearly 1 million children a year. Oh, we only kill 1 million a year. Isn't that great? No, it's a travesty. And how dare we say that is in any way a success after 40 years of doing anything, that we still have 1 billion babies that are slaughtered every year illegally in our country? Well, let me tell you, we've got the most exciting news of all, and that is there is a bill. It is now before Congress. It's called H.R. 490, the Heartbeat Bill. The Heartbeat Bill, let me summarize it in one sentence. It says that if a heartbeat's detected, the baby's protected. That's the bill. And so what's happening now is we've got more co-sponsors on this heartbeat bill than any other pro-life bill in Congress. It's the most supported by members of Congress. It is the most supported by public opinion. We did a Barna poll, scientific poll of Americans, over 1,000 were interviewed, and guess what? 7 out of 10 in America want the heartbeat bill to become law. 86% of Republicans, and I'm glad you're sitting down, Stacey, because there is a majority of Democrats. 55% of Democrats want to see the heartbeat bill become law. Because look, they may say, I may call myself pro-choice, I may be in favor of legal abortion, but certainly not once the fellow human being has a beating heart that we can hear. Once there's a detectable heartbeat, everybody knows if there's a heartbeat, there's life. That's why we check the pulse of someone who faints or falls in front of us. This is why we have heart monitors in hospitals. They're not there for decoration, Stacey. You know, none of us have ever been to a funeral of somebody with a beating heart. Everybody gets that. Dr. Wilkie, the late Dr. Wilkie, who was one of the founders of the pro-life movement, said there's something about heartbeat that people get. You know, we've seen the bumper sticker, abortion stops a beating heart. Well, with the heartbeat bill, a beating heart will stop abortion. And guess what? Congress has told us that they're going to pass some pro-life bill next week in conjunction with the pro-life March for Life on January 19th. And so they've got a choice before them. They can choose to pass the bill that will protect nearly 1 million lives, the heartbeat bill that will protect nearly every child facing abortion right now, every child whose heartbeat can be heard, or they can pass a bill that won't end any abortions. That's the bill they're announcing that they want to pass instead of the substantial bill, the heartbeat bill. They're choosing this born alive survivors bill that simply says if the abortionist attempts to kill the baby through an abortion, whether it's dismemberment or poison, suction, or whatever method of the brutality form of the ultimate child abuse they use, in the event this child survives this lethal attempt to take his life, then you're not allowed to finish him off. Then you've got to treat him like he is any other human being, and I would think the homicide laws would kick in, but that's when you need to make sure that baby is treated. All right, that's like saying, well, if the assassination plot doesn't work, if, in other words, my attempt to maim you, shoot you, to stab you, to poison you, if that doesn't work, then, well, you know what? Then we're gonna treat you. I got a better idea. How about this, Stacey? How about we actually stop the abortion from happening in the first place? Not just rescue the kids who, through some stroke of divine intervention, survived this lethal attempt from the abortion industry. Why don't we stop the killing at the beginning? Let's stop it before it happens, which is what the heartbeat bill would do. And so that's why we've put together a program that will make it the easiest you can possibly imagine to send the most important things. Right now, we found out inside information is that faxes get right to their desk. They walk. If you send a letter, it goes through screening, goes through staff. It takes several weeks to make sure it has no anthrax or anything attached to it. But a fax goes right to their desk. They deliver it right to their desk. And if you go to my website, faith2action.org, F2A, the number 2, A.org, you can actually click the button and send 7 free faxes. They're not free. I pay for them. But I think it's so important that Faith Action is willing to do that because you can send 7 messages right now to Congress and say, you know what? Protecting a child after you've attempted to kill him is woefully inadequate. We can end abortion, and we're calling on you to do what we elected you to do. Not march about abortion, not restrictive, not regulate abortion, not talk about abortion. We can end it. And that's what we're calling on Speaker Ryan, Majority Leader McCarthy, the members of leadership to do. And one click, less than 20 seconds, you can, I think, engage in the most important battle right now. One of the things I've been engaged in Faith to Action is where's the battle the hottest? Where can what we do the most good? And that is right now sending that fax to the members of Congress who are making the decision next week about which bill they're going to pass, the one that will protect nearly every child or the one that won't protect any. That's the message.
There you go. And not only that, but we have a current president who's not going to veto the bill.
Right. He's already spoken support of the bill. We met with the vice president in the White House, and he has told us he loves the heartbeat bill, and he actually delivered our letter with 120 group leaders on it directly to the president's desk. And so, for people to...
Uh-oh. All right.
Say now what we've been hearing, we've got a body count of 60 million. How the heck much longer do you expect us to wait? We're not waiting anymore. We're not taking excuses. We're sick of your do nothing fake pro-life bills. And if you don't do what we elect you to do, then don't expect our votes in the midterm elections. Quite frankly, if they want us, they want our support, they need to do what we elected them to do. And that is not talk about or regulate abortion or march about it. It's to end it. And this bill is the best, most protective incremental bill that they have in front of them. And it's supported by 170 co-sponsors and members of Congress who are calling for its passage as well.
Amen.
I'm a little fired up about this.
Yeah. Hey, you know what? I understand it. I'm totally with you because, let's just be honest, and I'll say it. Abortion is murder, and it's basically a sacrifice to the devil. Okay, I believe that. I think that's what I believe, and I think it's probably the most horrendous thing. And I always tell people, if you're of a certain age, my mother told me that if abortion was legal when I was born, she would have killed me. Just so you know. My mom didn't like me. And I was only born just slightly before it became legal. So, go.
I thank God for that. And that's why we need these laws back in place. We need to make sure that children are protected as they once were 45 years ago, and make sure that we do not sacrifice our children to for whatever reason. We need to protect human life. That is what we are endowed by our Creator with, the right to life. And that's what really we've got to get back to. And the good news is we have a mercy of God. God intervened in this election. I'm just going to tell you, you may not like everything Trump says, and maybe he says some things awkwardly and some things that maybe we don't agree with. But I'll tell you what, it was everybody's estimation. Every polling, every politician, they were all saying Hillary was going to be president. We would be mourning right now the death of the Constitution. So for all his faults, Trump has promised that he will put pro-lifers on the Supreme Court, and we're looking to see as many as 2 or 3, maybe 4, that would retire in the next few years. By the way, by the time our heartbeat bill, which we are praying with your intervention, will pass next week in Congress, that by the time that reaches the Supreme Court will say yes, and that babies whose heartbeats can be heard will be legally protected. And I can tell you the ins and outs legally, if you want to get into that. I can tell you the rationale behind it, why we believe this is the best bill to come before the Supreme Court right now.
I would totally love to hear that. Okay. So, and I have a really cool story that would just warm the cockles of your heart. I do. But first, we have to take a break. And I want to tell everybody, our guest is Janet Porter. You guys are all online right now. If you're online, because we're online people, in case you didn't know that. So if you go over to f2a.org right now, you can go ahead and get your facts in during the show. Hopefully some of you are going to do that. I know we don't got 5 million people watching, but you know what? Every fax that's sent, like one fax that's sent, that represents 100 people or something. It represents a lot more than just you, okay? So don't think that your one little measly fax is not going to mean anything. Excuse me. It will actually mean a lot more than what you think. So you guys go over there right now and do that, or, bookmark this and do it after the show. The other thing I want to do is I want to thank Ariel Ministries. Ariel is the Messianic Jewish ministry of Dr. Arnold Fruchtenbaum, who is a believer in Yeshua, supports Israel, and they support Bible News Radio. And what we want to do is let you know that we have a coupon code that's 20% off any product in there on their website. All you got to do is go to ariel.org and save 20% when you use Bible News. Yes, that's right. And I also recommend their book, Yeshua, Life of the Messiah from a Messianic Jewish Perspective. It's one of the best ones. They have the abridged version. They also have the Harmony of the Gospels that they're selling together. And on their website, they're only offering 15%. But with our code, you save 20%. So do the math. You'll save more when you use our code, Bible News. And the other thing, too, I got to tell you, is that if you go over to our Twitter account, at Bible News Radio on Twitter, we have a free 21-page PDF for you from Ariel Ministries, which talks about the 33 things that happen when you become a follower of Christ. 33 things. It's the 33 things. It's a study of positional truth. It's super radically cool. If you want to go deep into your Christian faith and learn some theology instead of some of the fluff from everywhere else, I would highly just encourage you to download this PDF. All you got to do is just go to my Twitter account. It's there. Or if you're listening to our archive on Spreaker or watching on YouTube, and you just want to go bit.ly/Ariel33, make sure Ariel and 33 is all capped. Not that you can cap a 3, but you know what I'm saying. Anyway, make that caps, then you can download it. Lots of you are doing that. I totally appreciate it. And when you support Ariel, they support us. And I can tell you, people like me and Janet who are actually telling the truth and not lying, we're not in this for the money. We need all the support we can get. So that's the other thing I want to tell you is Spark Naturals essential oil. Look, I use it. I have horrible allergies, people. And we have an affiliate code with them. If you use Spark Naturals, if you go to sparknaturals.com well, that's it. Just go to sparknaturals.com right there. You can save 10% on anything, even their sale items, okay? So, like when they have a sale, they put it on sale for 10%. Then you can use my code, which is another 10% off. You save 20%. And my code is John3:16 for obvious reasons. It's easy to remember, and it's tied to salvation and savings. So if you guys want some good essential oil, go ahead and check out sparknaturals.com. Use John3:16. The other thing is, if you want to donate to our show just because you love us so much, go over to BibleNewsRadio.com/give. And you can also become a pillar of our community. Now, the pillars commit to donating at least $25 a month to us. And then what we do is we put you in a Facebook group where we share a lot of behind the scenes stuff that you don't get on our show. And you get priority. In fact, I was just contacted today by Duck Dynasty's Phil Robertson's press person for an interview. Not with Phil. And I know you guys know. Hey, I'm just going to hold him up. You guys know I like Phil, right? Well, I have been offered another interview with a really big celebrity, actually. I'm not going to tell you who it is, but I'm going to tell the pillars. They're going to find out as soon as the interview is booked. So that's the type of stuff that you get. Yep, pillars of the community. There you go. So if you like what we do, what we stand for, then go ahead and support us. And I'm trying to remember if I'm forgetting anything else. Am I forgetting anything? Oh, yeah, the Unstuck Club. Do you ever feel stuck in your life? You probably do, because that's, typical of most people. Well, if you do, I have developed the Unstuck Club. This is where I get to tell you what to do every week if you sign up. This is weekly inspiration to move you forward. All you got to do is go to bit.ly/Unstuck Club. That's where I put in a 10 or 15 minute video, sometimes longer because I like to talk, where I tell you how to move forward, right? This is using my background as a therapist. So it's free coaching for you if you take it. Right now, I think there's like 5 hours of free video in there. So check that out, Kay. All right? I think that's it. All right. Okay. All right. Janet Porter is our guest tonight. Faith to Action is her ministry, her passion. This is a woman on fire for God. I love her because you know why? She actually is a real believer. She's not a fake one. And there's a lot of people out there that are masquerading as a Christian and they're not. Just so you know. You're welcome, Sparky, Nadine. And I have to tell you, Janet, I want to tell you something that happened here in Spring Hill, Tennessee, where I live. I don't know if you've ever heard of the show Preacher's Daughters. Have you ever heard of the show?
Uh-huh.
Okay. So there is a woman, her name is Victoria Koloff, and she's a local person here in Spring Hill. She actually runs the Crisis Pregnancy Center here in Spring Hill, and a couple of years ago she was invited to be a guest on, to appear with her girls on this this reality TV show called Preacher's Daughters. She actually used this show as a platform to talk about the pro-life issue, abstinence, all this other stuff. And in our little city of Spring Hill, she is like a superhero of the pro-life movement. I mean, absolutely, you go up to her, she's, people just give her money, right? I mean, it's just because. Well, a couple of months ago, I guess it was a couple of years ago, one of the churches here in our local area decided that they were going to pay off the CPC here.
The mortgage.
Yep, and they just did it.
Wonderful. That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's very cool.
What happens when we act like the body of Christ, when we actually put our faith to action, we can accomplish all the things that God's told us to do. And we're to be salt and light in this dark and decaying world. We are to be a voice for the voiceless, for those appointed to die, it says in Proverbs 31:8, 24:11, to rescue those that are being carried away to death. This is what we're called to do.
Yep.
And if you're not able to fight it full time like you and I are, Stacey, I've got my phone here and I can watch as the faxes come in. If you go to faith2action, faith2action.org or 2, F, the letter F, the number A, the letter F, the number 2, the letter A.org, faith2action.org. You can click that button, and even while we're talking, in the next 10 seconds, you can send those 7 faxes to the people that are going to be making that decision when they come back next week. We've also got the phone numbers on that website. Call them, leave a message, fill up their voicemail. I was speaking at a Cornerstone church in near Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania this last weekend, and it was kind of fun, Stace. We first service, we had everybody call Speaker Paul Ryan. We filled up his voicemail. Second service, we had everybody call the Majority Leader McCarthy. Filled up his voicemail. Third service, we had everybody call the Majority Whip, Steve Scalise, and filled up his voicemail. He's the guy you remember who was near critically shot in that D.C. shooting. We told him that we're praying for him and that we're so glad he's back and that he can be a voice for the voiceless, for those nearly 1 million babies whose lives are going to be brutally killed. Why? Because Congress isn't doing their job. And so we need them to encourage them right now. Do what we elected them to do, protect human life. By the way, that's what Thomas Jefferson said the role of government is. That's what it is. You know, they say the government out of this issue. No. The role of government, said Jefferson, is the protection of human life. To care for human life and not its destruction is the first and only legitimate object of good government. That's what government is there for, and we need them to do what we elected them to do. And so F2A.org, in fact, I can tell you as they're coming in. So right now, Thomas is somebody, David just sent it. The emails are coming in fast. All you have to do is enter your name, your email, boom, done. You can enter your city and state, and you will have 7 faxes sent from the 10 seconds it takes you to write that, and I'm paying the bill, so you have nothing to lose. Now, if you want to turn up your impact and increase your influence, you can send it to 400 and some, almost 500 people with a click of a button, the same amount of time. You can send it to everybody in Congress who needs to see it, and that is something you can do to cover the cost. I think it's like $15, but it's worth it. I sent it today at $15. I paid $15 to send it so that everybody that is making this decision, and we need the grassroots, not just the leadership, but everybody, every Republican. And I'll tell you, there's a lot of them that are really good people. As I mentioned, 170 of these legislators are co-sponsors on the heartbeat bill, and they want this thing brought to a vote. And so add your voice, give them encouragement, give them a means when they come in to go and walk into the leadership office and say, Leader McCarthy, Speaker Ryan, we need you to pass this bill. You know, if you want to pass the other one, that's fine. But you need to pass the heartbeat bill, too. As they say in the pro-life movement, why can't we love the both? We're not going to be fooled by this fake game they play. Oh, look how pro-life we are. We passed a bill that won't protect anybody, you know, that won't prevent a single abortion. That's appalling. On 45 years of the anniversary of Roe versus Wade, that's the best you can do? No, we can do better. And the time is now to do it. And our voice, I believe, right now is being heard, and we need to make sure we amplify it. And go to F2A.org. Do everything you can right now. And then if you could share it with people, click the site, share the information so that in fact, we're telling people, boost the post, get it out there. Because what happens if they come in Monday morning and they've got hundreds and thousands of faxes, Stacy? I'm going to tell you what, they're going to be thinking twice, because these people know that the ones who are sending faxes are the ones who are their voters. And I believe we can turn this thing around. I do. And you see my wall behind me. That's actually the motto of my home state. With God, all things are possible. You either believe that or you don't. I live my life like I believe that to be true. And I am expecting for a divine intervention. God doesn't just sweep in and save a nation, as David Barton said in the movie Light Winds, which you need to get. But he uses people. He uses people. And that's why I'm thrilled to be a part of your audience. Because they're the special forces, I think. And I say this when I talk to Eagle Forum all the time. These are the ones who are doing the work, doing the heavy lifting, because God uses a very vocal minority very often to change the course of history. That's what I believe can happen right now. I believe we're a majority, but right now there's a lot of people who are misled. They're lulled to sleep. They say, oh, isn't it great? We're going to pass a bill to, you know, that they can't finish off the babies who survived the attempt of the abortionist. No, that's not good. That's not okay. It's not good enough. When we've got a body count of 60 million, we're not going to fall for this deadly ruse anymore. The fake pro-life bills, we're not buying it. And if people understand really that what's at stake, there's a lot of establishment. National Right to Life is one of them, saying, "Oh, it's so wonderful that they're gonna give us a millimeter of protection." No, it doesn't even end one abortion for one single baby. But what we can do is actually protect every child whose heartbeat can be detected. And that's really the same as any other human being. We're just simply saying, let's no longer discriminate against the very young. Let's protect people across the board who have a beating heart. That's why we have those monitors. That's why we check people's pulse. We now need to recognize that across the board. And in the case of the unborn, which will save, like I said, nearly every child. We can do that right now, and it's never been easier.
Amen. Amen. I got to tell you some of the comments coming in here because a couple of people said, well, I think it was one person said that we look like sisters. So I take that as a compliment. And somebody's saying, hear ye, hear you. You are a prophetic voice, Janet. And you're a great guest. You're awesome. Which I already, hello. I don't know why it's taken me so long to get you back on. I don't know what's wrong with me, but
number, so you can reach me anytime.
Yeah, cool. That's very well. Yeah, you can count on it. Trust me on that. Okay, so yeah, you guys do that. I'm gonna, you know what? I'm not a rich woman, but afterwards I'm gonna be like doing that 400 vax thing.
God bless you.
Got my word on that. So, and you know what, you guys out there too. Hey, don't donate to me. Donate to Janet right now and do this stuff. Okay. You know, because it's important. You know, let me tell you something. You know, the world wants to make this issue all about, well, the conception, right? How is the baby conceived? It drives me up a wall. Okay, first of all, you know what I always tell people, Janet? First of all, I'm a barren woman. I couldn't have children, which really sucks. That was the biggest crushing heart thingy of my life, was not being able to have my own kids. But when somebody uses the argument that, you know, abortion should be illegal in the cases of incest and rape, I always say to them, really? I mean, do you think everybody that was conceived was having an awesome sexual experience when it happened? You know what I'm saying? It sounds logical, but what I'm saying is that it doesn't matter how the baby was conceived. It's a baby, for crying out loud.
You know, here's a question for someone watching right now. What if the narrative we heard about how your mom and dad came together, a loving relationship, and then you were conceived and born, what if they sit you down one day and they say, well, you know, that wasn't exactly how it happened. You know, you were actually the product of an unwanted sexual encounter, and would that make your life any less valuable? No, we're the same human being. Regardless of circumstances we have no control over, of whether, how we were conceived. You know, and that's where we brought in people like James Robinson, who is a guy who feeds now 100,000 children. He's head of Family Life Today Ministry of Life Ministries. Rebecca Kiesling was there at the hearing we had in the Judiciary Committee on the heartbeat bill in Washington. And, you know, someone needed to, you know, they need to ask her, what about her life? Her life is valuable. She's a very articulate, beautiful woman who's a lawyer who was conceived through no fault of her own, through the act of rape. This is a situation where our lives are just as valuable, regardless of what it you know, how our conception occurred. And I think that's really the key. Is, in fact, we brought in Ohio a little girl named Bella. This little girl was 5 years old, curly hair, beautiful girl. She brings a little baby doll with her everywhere. She's 5 years old, and she cut out these little hearts that said thank you. And as the day they were considering whether or not to gut the bill with a rape incest exception, she handed out these hearts to all the committee members, and they realized if they were deciding whether or not to put in a rape incest exception, they were holding her heart in their hands, literally, whether or not her life was worthy of legal protection or whether it wasn't. And they said, no, we're not going to throw little girls like Bella out in the cold and not protect them because of how she was conceived. She's just an adorable little child. Everybody loved her. And that's it. I mean, that's the key. In fact, by the way, in the Judiciary Subcommittee hearing where this took place last November, we brought in, this is kind of fun, Stacey, you'll like this. We did this in Ohio too. We brought in the youngest to ever testify. We actually had an 18-week-old unborn baby up on the ultrasound screen in the hearing room.
Wow.
So if you can imagine, we've got all these people, we're all wearing red because that's our heartbeat color, right? And the cohorts this time they were wearing purple. And they're all wearing their NARAL jackets. They were purple choice stuff. And they come in and they're being obnoxious. They're interrupting the meeting. They're shouting stuff out. But I will tell you this, when that baby was up on the screen, little 18-week-old baby Lincoln, who I think is going to be a voice to emancipate the other unborn children. Baby Lincoln was on that screen. The entire room was silent. And they heard the baby's heartbeat. And when that heartbeat was heard, one of the protesters, who had been very vocal moments before, was seen wiping away tears from her eyes. Because that child's heartbeat was able to touch even the hardest of hearts. And that gives me great hope for America, that heartbeat of that baby is one that people get. And that's what the Barna poll showed, that the majority of even Democrats believe and understand that if you've got a fellow human being whose heartbeat we can hear, who we can see on that ultrasound screen, then certainly that fellow human being ought to be legally protected. And that's what H.R. 490, the heartbeat bill, would do. And you can just go to f2a.org, click the button, send the fax, so that you can send. By the way, it's 476 faxes, I think it is. That's a lot. In one click, here it is. 476 faxes for cover the cost of $15. Best $15 you're going to spend today, I promise you. Or you can click the button and send the 7 faxes for free. Both are good. One is better, but that's something we can do now that can have a real impact. You know how people say, write a letter to the editor. It'll make a big difference. And, maybe you could hold a sign and join a life chain. And, no, this is something that can actually be where the battle is the hottest. As Martin Luther said, if we're not faithful where the battle is the hottest, we're not fighting where the battle is the hottest, he said that we are traitors to the cause. Right now, I'm going to tell you, in the landscape of America, where the battle is the hottest, where we can make the biggest difference in the issue of life, is right now sending the faxes to the 7 decision makers, to the members of Congress, who are going to be deciding by next week. We're not talking about maybe one year we'll get it, one day. No, we're talking about a vote that will take place next week. It's either going to be on a bill that doesn't prevent any abortions, or a bill that will prevent nearly all of them and protect every child whose heartbeat is detectable. And so that's it. Go to f2a.org. I can't say it enough, because that's what's going to make the difference. And I really strongly believe, as the motto says, with God all things are possible. This is our moment to put our faith to action and bring the killing to an end. I'm tired of talking about it, Stacey. I don't know about you. I'm tired of marching. I'm tired of talking. I'm tired of regulating. I'm sick of it. I want the killing to end. And maybe not everybody feels that way, but I do. And those who elected the members of Congress on a pro-life platform, they've been running on pro-life platforms for decades. It's time they actually do what they've been promising. They need to keep their word and save these lives. And that's the message.
I agree. I think you've been into this battle just a couple more years than me, but I have to say that when I moved here to Tennessee from California, good old liberal California, where most of my votes just were ignored, it's kind of like, anyway. I moved here to Tennessee, though. One of the very first things I went to was a meeting. I forgot who held it, but there was a whole bunch of people who were running for office, and one of the issues, there was 2 issues. The biggest reasons why people ran for local government here were the pro-life issue and the homosexual issue.
Wow.
And one of the guys that actually was trying to get reelected, he actually told me he was trying to pass a specific pro-life bill here. And the thing is, it literally took 7 years to get through the stinking paperwork and all the crap that they do, like they slam it down. I mean, and I was like, really? Because Sheila Butt is a big one out here. She's actually one of the biggest people out here, and and there's a couple other people too. But you'd be surprised how liberal Tennessee is, even on some issues. It's crazy. And so, if the church is going to be salt and light, people, this is so easy. I mean, seriously, and I don't know, 45 years of abortion. I mean, geez, the devil, just think about it, people. The devil is enjoying every one, and as a Christian, I go, I don't want the devil to win on anything, because he sucks, just so you know. And we've already won, so let's stand with the Lord and do it.
I wouldn't put quite that way, but I agree with you.
Well, I'm not you. I've been told by a dear friend of mine I need to round the edges, but you know what? I'm kind of like Peter LaBarbera. people are saying that they agree. Okay, so Barbara and Jean is saying God will overturn Roe versus Wade and he will get the glory. I hope so.
Yeah, we do our part if we obey him, and that's what counting means. So I want to let's ask whoever just wrote that, ask them if they've sent their faxes yet. I want to know.
Did you send your fax yet? That's what she wants to know.
F2A.org.
Yeah. So, okay.
What else we got?
You're not a little one, but in a rising, just remember the Lord is pleased with your effort. We Christians must stand up to what is wrong. Evangelist Valerie and Prophetic Rich said those things. You guys have any questions for Janet? I mean, we got a couple of minutes left. I do have an A-list guest question. Okay, now I'm keeping in mind your enemies, so I'm not going to ask you one question, but I will. I mean, okay, I'll ask you the least one that if Right Wing Watch decided to pull a clip, it wouldn't. They wouldn't go, man, you're weird. Okay, so here it is. I always ask my guests if you have any magnets on your fridge. Do you have any magnets on your fridge?
Yeah, I have a quote from Winston Churchill: "Never, never, never give up." That's on my refrigerator.
I believe it. See, okay, and that one's easy. And then I had a couple other ones, but I could see Right Wing Watch twisting them. So,
okay, thank you.
I'm trying to think like the enemy, which is hard,
Yeah, I'll tell you, one of the things, and I've told this to Tom DeLay and to Judge Moore and to others, I said, if you want to know how important what we're doing is, take a look at what the enemy's saying about you. That's what God essentially told Gideon. If you want to be encouraged, Gideon, go in the enemy's camp and listen to what they're saying about you. And that's when he overheard the dream, right? And he was encouraged to go in and fight. Say, yeah, this is none other than Gideon. And this is really it. If they hate you, if they don't hate you, the enemy doesn't hate you. I got to wonder, are you really doing anything at all? So I remember when I ran for the Senate last year. Was it last year already? Year before now, I guess. And I looked on Right Wing Watch, and the fact that I was the number 2 most watched woman in America, and honestly, it's not fun to be to be constantly criticized and slandered and called names and ridiculed. But the fact that I was number 2 woman in the country, that they were watching, I mean, man, these people have been watching my speech. They've been to more speeches than my husband or my mother, So that tells me that they consider us to be a threat when they're watching us that closely. And quite honestly, that keep it up. I'm encouraged because we're going to keep giving them something to watch. Because I want to say, watch this. We're going to end abortion. Keep watching. We're going to bring the killing to an end. And if those of you who are watching right now will go to f2a.org, click that button, you will in 20 seconds, I think, do the most good you can do for the pro-life movement today. And for $15, you can send it to every Republican in Congress and to all the leadership that needs to see it, including the president and the vice president, for that $15. We're not making money on this. This covers the cost. And send 430. You can send 430. No, what did I say? 476. 476 faxes. If you can send those on your own, I say do it. But we're doing it for you, and we're doing it at cost. So you can be a part of that, or send the 7 ones for free. But that's what I believe is going to make the difference. When they come in, we've got meetings with these members of leadership, with our sponsor, Congressman Steve King. He's also talking with those in the White House. We are right now on the precipice of victory. We could see Congress pass the most protective pro-life law in their history if we will act now. And I'm not kidding. This is not hyperbole. This is not hype. I'm just telling you, I've been involved in this now. Just this bill, this is my 8th year fighting for this bill, and I'm telling you,
there you go,
closer to ending abortion than we are right now. But it's going to take you putting your faith in action.
Okay, so you guys just heard what Janet said, right? 8 years. That's not. That's longer than it took. Well, half the time it took me to get through grad school, but 8 years. That's a long time to get a bill. You remember that old Schoolhouse Rock when a bill becomes a law.
I'm just a bill.
Yeah, it does. It takes a lot longer than that cartoon, right? All right. So, Barbara, you said that I didn't see your answer, but she said she answered you, and a couple other people just said they're going to send theirs in too. So I hope that they did. It's kind of weird. I feel like I'm having a telethon in a way. But yeah.
Because honestly, I'll just tell you, Stace, I love you, and I'll come on your program. The reason I wanted to come on tonight is for this reason. So that we can deliver the message that they cannot ignore. It'll be on their desk Monday morning, and we can send it now. And same with those voicemails. fill up their voicemails, and the phone numbers are also at f2a.org.
Yeah. Well, we have a gift. We have a gift when people come on. People give to the ministries that come on, just so you know. True story. All right. Let's see. There was one other thing. There's a good way to okay. Oh, okay. So Jesus Magnus said there's a good way to shift money. It's called Swish to pay through smartphones. We're being called awesome woman of God. Evangelist Valerie said sent 476. And Barbara said, I have done the walk for life. I've supported, and there was one and heartbeat. Then this person saying Trump and Pence hate abortion. Well, yeah, they do. And by the way, did you guys know I'm going to be down at the National Religious Broadcasters Convention next month? I think it's at the end of February. And Mike Pence, VP, is going to be there. He's going to be keynoting at that. And Ashley is saying that we're both disgusting. So good. We're making a difference in your life. That's important.
Hold on. Say that again. Ashley says we're disgusting?
Yeah, that we're disgusting. Yes. Yeah.
We are. Okay. Hey, all the best to you, Ashley. Someone to pray.
No, she's saying you're hurting rape victims. Actually, do you want to address that?
Okay, what she's saying that we're hurting?
Yeah, she says we're hurting rape victims.
Okay. Well, let me tell you, I've talked with one of the women who lobbies with us for the heartbeat bill. Her name is Rochelle Heidelbaugh. You ought to have her on your show sometime. She is a rape victim, and she bought the lie that the solution to the assault that she had of rape, she was drug raped. She was drugged and then was raped. And she said she was bought the lie that the solution to your problem is to go and have your child dismembered and your child eliminated. And she said, you know what? I don't remember. I don't think about the rape. What I think about is the act that I actually had a hand in. The rape, women have no choice. That's done to them. But what is more scarring, what is more emotionally devastating from the women I've talked to is the act that they participated in taking the life of their own child. And she points out to members of Congress that first off, we wouldn't give a suicidal man. If someone is suicidal in a crisis, we don't say, well, hey, buddy, here's a gun. Do what you think is best. Choose whether you want to live or die. Here's a gun. It's loaded. Don't worry. No, that would be cruel. We wouldn't do that. But what we're doing to women who are the victims of this assault, this criminal assault, is we're telling them, hey, we've got a solution for you, a second act of violence, which never erases the first act of violence, but it's something that they participate and kill a child who is biologically their child as well. And as Rochelle points out in these meetings, she said, here her other daughter that was born had just had given birth to other children. She goes, I not only took the life of my child, of my grandchildren who never got to see life because I made this choice at a moment of crisis because they told me it was a solution, and it was the biggest lie I've ever heard, and it was the most devastating decision of her life. And so when you want to talk about rape victims, talk to the ones who've been there, and talk to the ones who've chosen life, where like the mom of little Bella, who comes and brings this little 5-year-old girl around to the hearings and says, see her life, look at her value, look at this little girl. You see her up on the stage, she's holding a heart balloon. You can see her on some of the things we have posted. This adorable little girl whose life was spared, and it's the greatest joy to her mother, who was a victim of date rape. And so, when we talk about what's best for those victims, by the way, that they seem to negate the other victim, the victim of the child who had no control over how they were conceived. But it's not the best solution for mothers either, as the women who've talked to can tell you, the women who've been there can tell you, whether they've chosen life or whether they've chosen abortion, they can tell you that life is the choice that you'll never regret.
Amen. And Randall, thank you for putting down the ticker there. That was very cool. Super cool. Yeah, Ashley is really upset. I'm just not going to read you what she's saying.
Your best, Ashley.
But Ashley, if you want to share our show out and get all your other friends in here to watch Janet, that would rock. I totally appreciate it. So, and you're laughing? Good. Well, I'm glad you have a sense of humor. Because we're gross. Okay, well, bless your heart.
What is gross? Let me show you what a dismembered child looks like. That's what's disgusting. That's what's appalling, and that's what we're allowing, and that's what we're offering women who a solution. This is not a solution. and it's not one that a civilized society should ever allow. And so, Ashley, you don't have to send those faxes in, but everybody else, send it in to make up for those who hate life, who hate our position, who hate those children who right now, whose lives are in the balance. They have no voice but us. We are their voice. Mm-hmm. If you want to be a voice for the voiceless, we're commanded to be that. I remember, Stacy, one day I was testifying on a bill that would protect babies from conception. I was in Ohio. I lived in Florida at the time. I flew back to testify. And this woman was on the committee. It reminds me a little bit of Ashley. She was a Democrat who said, "You people disgust me." She said, "Since when do you have to, you say that, you insinuate that to be a Christian, you have to be pro-life." And she says, "The Bible is a book about tolerance, and Jesus never said the word abortion." So she throws that to me. Here I am testifying. I said, well, if you open up that book, if you look at the Bible, you'll see that thou shalt not kill made the top 10 commandments, not suggestions. What Jesus had to say is that if you love me, you'll keep my commandments. It also says, as we mentioned earlier in Proverbs 24:11, that we are we're commanded to rescue those that are being carried away to death, that we're commanded to be a voice for those appointed to die, Proverbs 31:8. This is what we're commanded to do. If you are a pro-lifer, you're merely obeying God. You're just doing what he says. And that's honestly, that's how you can tell if you love someone. You love God when you do what he says. Jesus said, again, if you love me, you will keep my commandments. Mm-hmm. And that's really what it's all about. And if you don't like the fact that we're pro-life, I would encourage you to take it up with God. And I'm grateful that God has given you life. And that's a wonderful thing. And I would fight for your life regardless of your position. But this is from God. God has given us life. And that's the difference between America, the Constitution that we have, that acknowledges that our rights come from God. But what the world is now saying is that our rights come from the states. But if the government gives you rights, the government can take those rights away. Our rights come from God, and they're acknowledged as such in the Constitution. That's why America has the exceptional nature that we have. That's why we have had the success we've had to date, and we're losing some of that success when we turn from God's way. But when we turn back, one of the things God said in 2 Chronicles 7:14, if we want God to hear from heaven, if we want him to forgive our sins and heal our land, he gave us a checklist. And the checklist he gave us is that we are to humble ourselves, we're to pray, we're to seek his face, not just his hand, whatever we can get from him, but to seek his face, his presence. And then here's the fourth one everyone forgets. That's the one that says we are to turn from our wicked ways. If we do that, then God will hear from heaven. He'll forgive our sins and heal our land. And if you want a land that's healed, you want your sins forgiven, then I encourage you, follow that checklist. We're not coming on here if we come across as anything other than humble, then my apologies to you. But this is something that right now is in the balance. We have it within our grasp to get our country back. God gave us this window of opportunity. He gave us an opportunity to bring the killing to an end. And I'm telling you something that I speak from my heart, that if we don't take this chance we've been given, if we don't use this moment, this Kairos moment, divinely appointed moment by God, we don't use it right now, I don't know that it will ever come again. And so this is it. F2A.org. Do what you can. Get on your knees. We're encouraging people to fast and pray because if you want to move mountains, that's what it takes. It's high-octane prayer, which is prayer and fasting.
Amen. And, amen. I have to tell you, Janet, we've been on Periscope for 3 years, almost 3 years since they've been around. The first year we were here, we literally were on here 365 days in a row, almost twice a day, reading the Bible, strictly reading the Bible, letting people get into the Word. We did a show called Daily Disciples, which now we only do a couple times a week. Second year we were on here, we talked about evangelism the whole year. This year, our motto is pray for 18. And what that means is pray for 18 minutes a day. Just 18 minutes, 18 little dinky minutes a day. And that actually, I just want to end the show that way to encourage you guys to, do what Janet said, pray for 18. Well, she didn't say pray for 18. You can pray for however long you want, but 18, if you don't have a goal, it's a good place to start, I think, in honor of the year 2018. And why not start with the life issue? I mean, hello. And different things, and ask God to open doors to show you where you can minister and where he can bless you. I mean, the Bible says in James 4:8, one of my favorite verses, draw near to God and he'll draw near to you. The closer you are to Christ, the closer you're going to be like him, and sin will become an anathema to you. You'll go, ooh, I don't like that. Because I'm going to tell you something, and I say this all the time. The culture out there in the lying media, they are shaping the language that they use, right? They like to use words like pro-abort or, pro-choice and all this other stuff. And we're like, hey, I always say it's a preborn baby, not an unborn baby. It's a preborn baby because it's already a baby. It's just the size and location where it is, where he or she is. And I don't even like calling it an it because it's not an it. It's a he or a she, and it's so... and we got to take back the scripture language because it is on the issue of homosexuality. It's an abomination. Okay. I didn't make it up. God said it. But, we have to speak the truth in love. And I know to people whose eyes are blinded that real love to them is hate, but that's not who Christ was, right? Jesus is love. And so I just want to encourage you, look, if you can't plead ignorance on this show, especially on this issue. So do what Janet said. Just listen to her and do what she said, okay? I'll give you the last word, Janet.
He's never said, follow my disciples. He said, follow me. So you can find
right.
with pretty much everybody. But Jesus said, follow me. And that's really it. Do what he says and watch what he does. And that's to me, it's an exciting time. It's an exciting year. To think for a minute, Stacy, can you imagine? I'm going to be at that pro-life march on Friday the 19th. And imagine what happens if we have all put our faith to action. We've delivered the facts that we've filled up their voicemails. We've left those messages, even after hours. What happens if we're there to celebrate? That we are, once Congress passes the heartbeat bill, we will be halfway to ending nearly every abortion in America. It's an exciting time, and it's a time that not many people realize we're on the precipice of victory. If only we will engage right now and tell these people who say, we're going to give you a bill that does virtually nothing. No, it's not good anymore. That's not good enough. 45 years into this, we're not going to accept your lethal ruse. We're not going to accept this fake pro-lifeness where they all gather at the march and say, look how pro-life we are. We still only have a million abortions a year. No. The time to end it is now. If you want to do more than march, tell everyone you know to send those faxes at f2a.org, make those phone calls, and to pray for God to turn this around, to stop the shedding of innocent blood. It's going to take him, but he uses people. It's going to take us. So that's it, and I'm so grateful, Stacy, for all you're doing. It's so wonderful to reconnect with you, a fellow soldier in the cultural war and a warrior. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to talk to your pillars of the community and your listeners and viewers. What a blessing.
Well, thank you. We'll have to just make you regular because these people like you.
Maybe.
even if they didn't like you, I'd still have you come back anyway. All right, everybody, I'm going to end the show because our show is technically over. But as I always say at the end of every show, unless menopause kicks in and I totally forget and Bareface knocks me off track. Did you see the bus Bareface just threw you? Be bold, stand up, and go with God. You know why? Because he loves you. And we'll see you on Monday. And Lord willing, we'll be on Facebook Live at the same time on Monday as we are here on Periscope. So you guys pray for that too. And don't forget, go to f2a.org and get those faxes in.